you so much for being here. I'm very excited to have you here and get into a great conversation with our guest. So I am your host, Julie Fairhurst, and you are watching Conversations with Women Like Me, Stories and Business. So today we are speaking with Cheryl Bishop. Now, Cheryl, well, I'm impressed by Cheryl, what Cheryl's been doing in the world. So you are going to want to stick around and hear what she has to say. You're going to learn all sorts of interesting and helpful things from Cheryl. So Cheryl, thank you so much for being here today. I just really appreciate it.
Oh, my absolute pleasure for being here today. Thank you,
Oh,
Julie, for inviting me.
oh, you're welcome. So Cheryl, why don't we start off by you just telling everybody a little bit about yourself?
All right. Well, my name is Cheryl Bishop. I have two grown boys. So a mother, a wife, a business owner. There's what I've learned in life is how powerful the mindset, our chatter that happens in our mind. So I have overcome a lot of challenges in my life. Many times we don't know somebody else's story. And my last conference, actually, Julie, that I had for the women, I shared a real intimate story that most people don't know about me. And I cannot believe how many women came up to me and said, that story was for me.
Oh,
Because many times people look at me and go, oh, you just, well, everything you do is so great. Well, sure. I had to learn how to do things
yeah.
and I had to overcome a lot of obstacles in my life. So,
Yeah.
um,
I love Cheryl that you said that because of course I'm all about stories and books and women's stories, and that's why we tell stories to help others and people.
mhm.
When we tell our story, we never know who we're going to help or who we're going to be able to touch. And so just by you mentioning that little bit, I appreciate that. It is so important for us as women to share our stories with each other.
Absolutely. Because it could be a
Yeah.
word of wisdom. It could be, oh, I'm not alone. I've been there myself. How do I get
Yeah.
out of it? Like we all
Yeah.
learn off each other. And that's why I'm so passionate about for women being in a community because
Yeah.
we do learn from each other. And I just, in within my own community, I see it all the time. And I love that part. And are
Yeah.
there times I've been scared to share? Oh, yeah. Because you're very vulnerable in sharing these things that happen in life, right?
Yes. Yes,
Sometimes it's
absolutely.
embarrassing. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's go from stories starting off into your business. So I'm really curious, what inspired you to start your business, which I don't think I mentioned it. It's resilient women in business. So
Mhm.
what inspired you to get started?
Well, that's a bit of a story. So I was building a business academy back in the day. We started in 2009 with a friend of mine at the time. And we built it across Canada to Calgary and Toronto. And then in 2017, my whole world started to rock. There was no guarantee on my income, just everything. And I'm pretty spiritual. I'm connected to God. I always, hear where should I go in my life. So I went through a real turmoil, meaning here I am in my life building this. Now, what's my next step? Because God was telling me to leave. And I didn't want to leave. It was like a divorce. It was really difficult. Like I went through all the emotions just like a divorce. And then I was going, okay, God, where do you want me? Where do you want me? And I started hearing one word. And that one word was resilient. I'd be taking my dog for a walk. I'd hear it over and over again. I'd be at the grocery store or driving down the street and I'd hear the same word, resilient. So then one day I said, okay, what does this word resilient mean? And I heard my intuition stand up and speak to me and say, Cheryl, you're resilient, but this word is not about you. So then I started going, okay, now I need to be a part of women's groups. I need to get back out in the marketplace because I used to travel a lot through North America, speaking at conference, doing education events in Calgary and Toronto. So I never had a schedule that was consistent. And so I really had to go, okay, I needed to be in the group of women to really understand what I'm supposed to do. And then it morphed into I'm supposed to start a business called Resilient Women in Business.
I
And
love that.
so the first thing I did is one day, and this is all about listening to the voice that it wants to guide you in life. Whether
Yes.
you believe in God, Holy Spirit, higher power, angels, whatever the belief system is for your listeners, Julie, is that the more we listen and do take action, opportunities and possibilities happen. So it was back in 2017 when I was going through all this. it was turmoil inside. And I was driving down 192 Street towards White Rock in British Columbia, driving, beautiful sunny day. And all of a sudden I had this thought, pull over and do a Facebook Live. And I totally could have went, no, you don't need to do a Facebook Live. You don't know what you're going to say. All the chatter.
Yeah.
But it felt like there was almost an energy on top of my hands to make sure I was pulling over. And this is what started Resilient Women in Business. I pulled over, did a Facebook Live, and this is what I said. To all you women entrepreneurs out there, I just want to let you know I'm your biggest cheerleader. God's doing something here in my life. I have no idea what it is, but I feel like I'm supposed to support you somehow. So I just felt so compelled to pull over and just tell you I am your biggest cheerleader. And that's pretty much all I said.
That gives me shivers. I love that.
Julie?
Yes. Wow.
So when I did that, I had 10 women private message me and said, Cheryl, when you know what you're going to do, let me know. So 2 weeks later, I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I am going to build a mastermind group of 10 women. I don't even know what I'm going to educate on, but we're going to study the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, which, by the way, is a classic book.
Yes.
So for your listeners, Julie, if they've never listened to Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, I'd highly recommend it. I'm probably on my 7th time listening and reading to it right now.
Yeah.
And I said to the women, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to build a mastermind. We're going to study the book Think and Grow Rich. We're going to meet every second Tuesday for 7 months. It's $20 a meeting. Are you in or are you out? And all 10 said, I'm in.
Wow.
And that's how I built it as I was going. I did not build it first. I was very honest, was my first group. And my first group, after the first 7 months, they go, what can we do next? They stayed with me that we actually studied the book Think and Grow Rich 4 times.
Wow. Wow.
So for 2 years, because it was 6 months, 6 months, 2 years. And that's when I like, okay, God, what am I to do next?
Yeah.
And that's when all the downloads came in for me. Dreams that I was like, whoa, monthly events I was supposed to do came in a dream. So much came in a dream.
Wow. Wow. I love that. And I love that you listened, because so often we get these little nudges and sometimes it's thrown right in our face. And out of fear, maybe people don't move forward or they don't listen. But this is what happens when you do, people. So listen to that little inner voice. Cheryl, can I ask you, how do you define resilience?
Oh, that's a big one. I think we could do a whole day seminar on resilience. Because resilience is really pushing through, looking at the next level of who do I want to become? Even as a woman, who do I, as a wife, as a mother, as a friend, as a daughter, as a sister, all of those things. Who do I want to become? And when you have a goal of whatever you want to become, it's working towards that no matter what challenges come our way or obstacles come our way. It's being persistent and determined to do what you really dream or you have a goal of. I mean, prime example, I used to never be able to talk in a group. I was so shy. I was so painfully shy that when I was probably 18, I got a hold of alcohol. Why? Because once I got a hold of alcohol, I was like, that was courage juice for me. Yeah. I couldn't believe that I could actually start talking to people because I was so shy.
Yeah.
So resilience is really pushing through. And then, of course, I had an addiction with alcohol. And then I had to learn how to let go of that addiction. So resilience is constantly looking at how do I become better? How do I build my business better? How do I become a better human being? Like it's pushing through all of what life happens, even our self-doubt. It's all I'm not good enough. Oh, I'm not worthy enough. Oh, I can't do that. All of these negative thoughts that every human being has.
Yeah.
It's pushing through all that.
Yeah. Well, when you first started out, I'm assuming there obviously were struggles, just like all of us. And so what's one piece of advice that you wish somebody would have been able to give you when you were starting out?
The story of, in Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, 3 feet from gold. So what ended up happening back in the gold mining days is there was a guy that bought all this equipment and he knew there was a gold vein in this particular area. And so he mined it. And then he gave up. He quit. He sold his equipment to next to nothing just to get out of debt. He had to borrow money from his family, and they all believed in him. That's why they lent him the money, but then he quit. The next guy that bought his machinery decided to hire somebody that knows about the earth. And they recognized this gentleman, the first one, was only 3 feet from gold.
Yeah.
Meaning never quit. Never quit.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. That's great. Love the story. That's awesome. So you focus on community and mentorship. So how do you think that those two things can impact women? How can it help women?
Well, I'm a huge educator for women in business. That's for sure, because we can constantly learn. And I got to share this because I know I'm not alone in this. I was thinking when I went for a walk this morning in the snow that we have here, I was thinking about when I was younger and how I never liked to read. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, Cheryl, just think about when you were 18 in school. I never read a complete novel because here's why. Words. The words that were too big, I was so embarrassed. I didn't know how, they were just too big for me. And I couldn't pronounce them. I was never very well in grammar in school. I really was not. And so I avoided books because they scared me. And then I remember my very first novel. I think I was 19. A girlfriend of mine suggested, just read this novel. And I read it. And I thought, wow, that was a really good novel. And then from novels, I only read really one. Then it took me decades to start picking up mindset books and books that like Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and so many more that are brilliant books out there. And I realized, okay, Cheryl, you have stopped yourself from knowledge. And knowledge is, man, I tell you, one of the biggest things we can learn about our life, to me, is our minds, how it works, our humanness, how it works, and our finance, because those are the things that we deal with every moment of every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with going back to your question, Julie, because I didn't really answer it.
No, that's what I was thinking. I don't think I love what you had to say, but yeah, I don't think you answered it.
So we all, I believe, in a sense of all of us, human beings, and especially women, we support each other differently than honestly, the opposite sex, men do.
Yes.
And women, I see that we network differently. We are really, a lot of us are caregivers. So what I mean by that is when a girlfriend needs help, we'll say, where do you want me to be and when? I'll help you, right? If somebody goes for surgery, I'll make a meal for you. Like it doesn't have to cost money that we do, but do you need a ride to the airport? I'll do that for you. Yes. So women are very supportive. And because we're very supportive, we really need each other because sometimes we get in our own way.
Yes, we do.
Right. So community is so important, especially the day we live in this world. When we're by ourselves in our own minds, that can be very dangerous.
Yes, it can.
Right?
Yes.
When we're in a group of women with great energy, oh my gosh, I don't know how many times I've experienced this myself. I almost didn't go to a meeting and then I pushed myself to go to the meeting because I think to myself, I don't know if there's a gold nugget, and I go and I'm so glad I went.
Yes. Yeah. Did you ever, or do you now even experience imposter syndrome? I think that's a big one that women have to overcome.
Oh my gosh, it so is. That's getting in our own way. It really is. And do I still do it? Yeah, because sometimes I go to myself, the thought says, who do you think you are? How do you think you can pull this off? And I have to stop it in its track going, well, my gosh, if God's gifting me my innate wisdom or my let's say sacred gifts that I have, because we all have different fingerprints, meaning that we're all so different, that we have our own way of doing something. Why would I deny that? So it's constant conversation with myself. There's many times that imposter syndrome creeps in. Now, what I can share is the more that I train my mind to not go down that path, the less the imposter syndrome comes in.
So what kind of tips would you give to any women that might be listening or watching on YouTube and they're feeling like who do I think I am trying to do this? Or what kind of tips would you give them or words of encouragement?
Yes. So, well, number one is understanding how the mind works. Because once we understand and we're aware of something, that's where change can happen.
Yes.
Right? Now, I did not know decades ago, I did not understand how negative I was to myself until I went to a seminar on leadership and they talked about mindset. And that was the first time I'm like, what is mindset? And so this is probably in 1997. And the exercise was really interesting for me because this was my first awareness of my mind. Is she said to us, why don't you put an elastic band around your wrist? And every time you hear yourself talk negative to yourself or self-doubt creeps in, pull the elastic band so that you can be aware of what you're saying and then shift it in that moment.
Yes.
I took that on. And I can tell you, Julie, man, did I have a lot of welts on my wrist? A lot. But that was my first awareness of how powerful my mind was. And it's not just my mind, it's all of our minds. We all are dealing with the humanness of who we are.
Yes.
It's not Cheryl Bishop, it's not Julie, it's not Tammy or Linda. It's the humanness that we all deal with.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So once we're aware of that, now there's two parts of the brain that we have. One is like our patterns or the survival side of our brain that wants to keep us safe. It wants to keep us in we know how to do this already, or the familiarity of that.
Yes.
And then there's another side of our brain when we're planning our goals and we want to quit this or work on our diet, all of these new things that we want to bring into our life. Well, it's a cheerleader for us. So here's what happens is that when we go to do these things, the side of the mind that wants to keep us safe or that's familiar wants to keep pulling us back because it doesn't like us being in a sense of a little bit of fear. It doesn't like us going into that mode. Well, that is unsure. I don't know how it's going to turn out. So can you just keep yourself safe here? So we battle with that all the time. Every human being does, whether we realize it or not. It's all science proven. And so when we understand that, that is when we can change things. Here's a real simple example. When my kids were little, all the bedrooms were upstairs in a house that we lived in. And so I'd put things on the stairs. So the next time I go upstairs, I take it upstairs. How many times did I walk past those things and did not take them upstairs? Oh, probably hundreds of times.
Yeah.
And then I had to be aware. Oh, Cheryl, okay, how many times have you gone up and down the stairs today and you did not take the kid's toy or something that needed to go up in the office or something that needed to go upstairs? Too many times. So I had to talk myself. So then what I had to do is stop. There's times where I go upstairs and I stop in the middle of the stairs, back up, because now I have to change my behavior, change my thought pattern, and go back, pick it up, Cheryl, and take it upstairs.
Yeah.
So I had to train myself through that. So that's just a real simple example of how powerful the mind is, because my mind kept saying, do it later, do it later, do it later.
Yes. Well, I think we hear, and I might not have my stat exact, but I think we hear, I can't remember exactly, but like 70,000 negative, we have 70,000 negative thoughts a day entering into our brain. And those thoughts are repetitive. So what you're negatively thinking today, you're going to be negatively thinking tomorrow and a week from now and 6 months from now and a year from now if you don't consciously try to change them. And that comes from childhood, that comes from bullies, that comes from a teacher that said something that stuck with us, and it just all builds up. So it's so important, our mindsets, and it's so important that we consciously are aware of what's going on in there and know that we can fix it. But we have to overpower it with more positive thoughts than negative ones.
100%. It's like
Yeah.
a muscle. So when we really understand how do we build a muscle, an actual muscle when we go to the gym, sometimes muscles have to be, okay, here's another prime example. I go to the gym. I haven't gone to the gym in years and years, and I go to the gym, I go work out, and then I'm more sore a couple of days after, like I could barely walk. I'm like, holy cow, what the heck's going on? Like, this is painful.
Yeah.
It's because our muscles have to go through that transition
Yes.
to get strong.
Yes.
So does our minds.
Yeah.
Right. So here's another story that probably people can relate to is because you said a lot of this comes from our childhood, and it absolutely does.
Yeah.
So I'll give you one example of my belief system that I didn't believe I was smart enough. And it came from when I was 8 years old. I was 8 years. I'll never forget it. I remember it in my mind's eye like it was yesterday. I'm sitting at the dining room table, the kitchen table, at my parents', of course, at my home. And my dad's sitting on one side of the table, and I'm sitting on the other side. And I'm coloring in my coloring book because I used to love to color. And I would sit there and color all day long. And my dad only went to grade 6 because his parents owned a dairy farm, and so he had to work on the farm. So he didn't go past grade 6.
Yes.
So my dad's writing a letter, and my mom is behind him in the kitchen preparing dinner. So innocent. So here's what happened. My dad said to my mom, May, which is her name, how do you spell car? Is it with an E or without an E? And my mom giggles, innocent, and goes, oh, Gordon, it's without an E. But here's what happened to me in my little mind. You see, I was always told when I was younger, and even today, I look like my mom, but everything else about me is my dad. The apple doesn't far from the tree. I am so much like my dad. Like me and my dad go, I can't believe how much we're alike. So when I'm told that as a young person, and I hear my dad can't spell car, here's what happened in my mind. My mind went, oh, he doesn't know how to spell car. You're just like your dad.
Yeah.
Clunk went in. You're not smart enough.
Yeah.
My parents didn't know that was happening.
No.
It all happened in my mind.
Yes. Yes.
The whole scenario in my mind. So I accepted at 8 years old that I am not smart enough. And when I accepted that, I totally struggled in school. You know, there might have been guys I wanted to date in high school, and I felt I wasn't smart enough. That I battled with.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I'm sharing that story is going back to building the muscle.
Right.
So every time my thought, when I identified that was in my subconscious mind in 2005, I went to a personal growth seminar, and I was like, whoa, I accepted that false belief. And then after that in 2005, I kept, every time it creeped in, I'd almost stand up and go into the power pose. You know, the Wonder Woman pose, the power pose. Now, ladies, whoever's listening, power pose is powerful. So you stand in the power pose with your arms on your hips and your shoulders back and your feet wide up, hip width apart. And I said to myself, anytime the thought would come in, you're not smart enough, Cheryl. You're not smart enough to do that. I would go, who said stand in the power pose? Who said that? Yeah. And then I go, I'm the only one that said that. And then I go, how do I know that to be true? That is not true. I am not accepting that any longer. And I would kick it to the curb. Go to hell where you belong. You don't serve me. And I had to do that over and over again because I was rewiring my mind.
Yes, yes, yes. And I love what you said there about, you know, it was an innocent thing that happened when you were 8. And I mean, all of us have had parents who have innocently said something and sticks with us, but it wasn't meant to be to you. But that's it. We take it on. We take that on because those are our parents. We take on all of that. You know, you do a lot of networking and you run networking groups. And so can you tell the women out there that are maybe afraid of networking or don't know what networking is all about? It's important to network.
100%. It's so important to network. Not only are we getting ourselves out there. So here's another story. When we were building the Business Academy in 2009, we did not have a website because websites way back then was like 10 grand. We didn't have
Yes.
the money. We were starting a business academy, and we didn't even know we were starting a business academy at that time. All we had was sales training at that time.
Yeah.
So we both knew we had to go out there and network, because that was the way. Strong, like, what do? Get to know your own neighbors, get to know your own community, because nobody knew what education we had available. And I can tell you, I didn't have the skill of networking. Now I basically can say, and I'm almost an expert. I don't like to use the expert, but I'm very, 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 very good at networking now. But was I back then? No. And I had to learn. In fact, I would lie. When I would go to a networking event, number one, I would sit in my car and wait till it started. And then I'd go in, and then I'd find a seat to sit down. And then at the end, when it was pretty much over and it was networking time, I was so scared that if I was talking to somebody, I'd look at my watch and go, oh, I got to go. I have an appointment. I did not have an appointment.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't, but I didn't know what else to do, because I didn't know how to communicate effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So networking is one of the biggest personal growths you can do. Yeah. And number two, you get to know your community and people get to know you. Number three, this day and age, more than ever, is the like, know, and trust factor alive.
Yes.
Because why? Why is it so much important these days? Because there are so many, we know fake news is around. We know there's a lot of people we can't trust.
Yes.
So many people have been burned for XYZ. So the trust factor is huge. Mm-hmm. And what I know for women, for sure, is absolutely when we get to like, know, and trust someone, it is easier for us to refer people. And the only way to like, know, and trust is not to show up at a networking event once or twice. Like, say if it's a chamber of commerce. If you want people to like, know, and trust, you've got to show up regularly.
Yes.
No business happens right off the bat. It's building those relationships. So networking is so critical for success, because you can learn, like I had to learn how to network. Yeah. It was a process for me. And was I good at it at the beginning? No. But how do you get good at something? You always have to be okay at something before you become good. And then you have to be good at something before you can become professional, a pro, right? That's the only process.
Absolutely. And absolutely.
It gains so much confidence, much confidence. I hear it all the time that women say, wow, by networking, I gained so much confidence.
Yeah, I believe that it's important as well. Absolutely. So what's one message to a woman who might be feeling stuck? What is something that they can do if they're feeling stuck? And I don't know, like, stuck in business, or stuck in life, or.
Well, that's a big one too. So basically, as easy as things sound easier than to do, right? Often. So the truth of getting stuck is, what are we saying to ourselves? When we pay attention, I can never find a client. There's power in words. If you can never find a client, you never will. Yes. So it's really, what are we saying to ourselves when nobody is listening? All my conferences and education that I do in a big, like if I speak at a different conference or even at my own, I have, let's say 80 women or 100 women in the room. And I will ask them, would any of you women in this room ever sleep with someone that puts you down, says you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, XYZ? How many of you would? Okay, no hands go up, right? Yeah. No, I wouldn't sleep with anybody with that. No way. I wouldn't sleep with anybody that puts me down. Okay. Well, then my question to you is, what do you say to yourself when nobody else is listening? Mm-hmm. I'm stuck. I'm not good enough. I'm this, I'm that. I need to learn more. How do we get unstuck? It is in the doing. It's in the doing. How do we gain more confidence? It's in the doing. It's in the doing that we gain and we can move forward. I've been stuck on a lot of things in my life. And again, it's because I'm not dealing with Cheryl Bishop. I'm dealing with the humanness, just like we all are.
Yes. Yes.
So getting unstuck is one step at a time.
Yes.
When you hear yourself, If you want to adapt the elastic band idea, that's what I had to do to hear myself and to be aware of, wow, was I ever negative towards myself?
You
So
know, I was just going to say, Cheryl, that is such a great idea, that to the elastic or whatever works for someone,
mhm.
because we don't realize that sometimes we're our own worst enemy.
Oh, Julie, sometimes I think most of the time we are our own.
Yeah.
I agree. Worst
Yeah.
enemy.
Yeah. And to have something that can wake you up to it every time you do it. Because if you're just going around in this cloud, you might not be aware of what it is that you're doing. And then one day you got to wake up and go, oh, now I see what I'm up to. And so learning how, just like you said, to learn to overcome those things that we're doing to ourselves. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Wow.
totally. I always say to women when I don't classify myself as a coach. I really love to educate. That's what I do.
Yeah.
So I preach by being observant
Yeah.
and being aware of self,
Yes.
because
Yes.
we cannot change anything that we're not aware of.
Yes.
Okay, for me, when I was drinking a ton, that's all, like every day, drinking, because I didn't know how to process my feelings. I didn't know how to communicate effectively. Drinking alcohol made me suppress all my emotions and all of this. And I had to learn to go through, okay, when I got upset, do not go towards alcohol. It was a process, and I had to fight with myself. So sometimes to get unstuck, we do have to fight with ourselves. I had to become the CEO of Cheryl Bishop, chief,
Yes.
which stands for Chief Encouragement Officer. That's what I had to become,
Love
right?
that.
I had to
Yes.
encourage
Yeah.
myself all
Yeah.
the time. You can do this.
Yes.
So getting
Yes.
unstuck, going back to that, is being your biggest cheerleader.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Wow, Cheryl. You are just so inspirational and a wealth of knowledge. And I just appreciate you so much being willing to share everything that you've been sharing with people that are listening or watching. I just love it. So before we go on to close, I have some fun questions I want to ask you. Just a few, just to get to know Cheryl Bishop a little bit better. And I think I know the number. I think I know your number one answer, but I'm going to let you tell us. So, what is your favorite book that inspires you in your business or in your life?
Oh, there's so many favorite books, to be honest. I mean, the classic book is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. That's a
Yeah.
classic. And what I've
Yes.
learned is, well, Bob Proctor, who has passed
Yeah.
on,
Yes.
he studied that book over 1,500 times and built his empire on that book.
Yes.
And what I've recognized is this time when I'm reading it and listening to it, because I do both, I listen and I read,
Yeah.
is I'm getting different gold nuggets than I have before. And to me, that's all books.
Yeah.
Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. That is another incredible book.
I love that book.
And yes, and even Worthy. Oh, there's so many good books.
Yeah.
So with books, when you find good books, even what's the other one? Atomic Habits by James Clear. That's another good book.
I haven't read that one, but I've seen it.
So many good books. Is to not only read it once, like Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. To me, that is a life book for people to read and listen to all the time, because there's so many insights about the humanness that we're dealing with.
And I think what happens with us is we read something and then we grow a little bit, and then we read something and then we grow a little bit. And so when you go back and you're reading that book for the second or the third time, your brain has changed, and you're allowing those those same thoughts that you read, but now you're allowing those thoughts to come into your brain and learn from them, where before maybe you were blocking them a little bit. So I agree. It's so important to read and then read it again and then listen to it. And there's always something you're going to get from that, for sure. Yeah. Okay. If you could have dinner with Any woman in history, who would you want to have dinner with and why?
Oprah.
Hmm?
I just love her heart.
Yeah,
I love all the things, and she had to overcome a lot of battles in life.
she sure did.
She
Yes.
really, like, if there anybody, if you don't know her story, look her up for her story, because it's so incredible
Yeah.
how she had to overcome so many obstacles and challenges in her life. And I love that she's knowledge, because she reads books, she grabs books that are like, the latest one is she had a interview with Mel Robbins,
Oh,
who
yes, yes,
her newest book, Let Them. And
yes.
when I saw the interview, I was like, wow, how incredible is that? And then I saw a video with Mel Robbins getting ready to be with Oprah, and it was like her dream of life. She never thought she'd have an interview with the queen of Oprah. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
And she got so nervous. And so I
yeah.
would say Oprah, because of all the things that she's done in life, and she is such a great person of service for others,
Yes,
that I
yes,
just love her.
yes, yes. Perfect. What is your favorite way to unwind after a busy day?
Well, let's see. That's a good one. I think the biggest thing that I like to do is just have a quiet time.
Mm.
Sit in
Hmm.
front of the fireplace and just grab a beverage and just sit with myself.
Yeah.
And so reflection.
Hmm.
As I get older, and I want to say wiser, because I certainly have gotten a lot wiser than my younger self. I'm
Yes.
completely different than what I was when I was younger.
Yes.
The wisdom that can drop in, and when we are reflecting on ourselves, there is so much power in that.
Hmm.
So really,
Yeah.
reflection time.
Yeah. I think that's so important.
Mm.
Okay. Number 4. What is a favorite motivational quote that keeps you going?
Oh, wow. You got good questions here.
Yeah.
One of my quotes that I love is by Joel Osteen, when he says, faith and fear have the same thing in common. They both ask us to believe in something we cannot see.
Oh, that is good. That
Love it.
is good.
I love it, because anytime I
Yeah.
feel fear of,
Yeah.
I'm scared to do it, okay, then I turn my fear into faith that everything is going to work out. So I face the fear and walk through it. So I love that quote by Joel Osteen.
That is a good one. I listen to Joel Osteen all the time. I
Mm.
think he's great. Okay, my last one. So if you could travel anywhere in the world tomorrow, where would you go and why would you go there?
Bora Bora. Really? Oh my
Oh,
goodness. Bora Bora. Why? Well, I toured the South Pacific when I was, how old was I? 29, I think it was. A long time ago, decades ago. And so I was so close to Bora Bora. I didn't even realize how close I was to Bora Bora and never went. And because I toured the South Pacific. So I went to Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, Hawaii, and home. I actually quit a job and thought, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And at the time, I was with a gentleman from Australia. So I was married, and so I've been divorced before. And so we took off for 6 months and toured the South Pacific. And I never went to Bora Bora. Why? Because number one, I didn't go. And number two, it looks stunning, like the beaches.
Oh, it does it ever. Yes, I personally never been, but I know some people who have, and that is top on the list. Top on the list. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Cheryl, for being willing to answer those fun questions and being here and just sharing your knowledge and your inspiration with our listeners and people watching on YouTube. We as women need to inspire each other. It's so important and be there to lift each other up. And I know that anybody who listens to you, watches this is going to be inspired. So thank you so much for doing this. Do you have anything? Oh, before I ask you that question, I just want to let everybody know that if you want to reach out to Cheryl, we are going to have all her details in the details section of the video and the podcast as well. Now, she's also got lots of free resources on her website, so we'll have her website there as well if you want to head over there, and there might be something there that helps you as well. Cheryl also has many networking groups throughout the Lower Mainland in British Columbia. So if you are living here and you'd like to attend, or if you come visiting to our area and you would like to attend, she's going to have all of that information on her website. So it's really easy to reach out to her and find her. So I just wanted everybody to know that. So Cheryl, before we go, any
Yes.
last words that you would like to share with our listeners and people who are watching?
Well, I would say I believe in every single person that's listening to this, that I believe that your birthright is to be successful. And for me, when I was younger, I hung on to somebody else's belief before I could believe in myself. So I would encourage whoever's listening that needs more belief in themselves to know that I believe in you. So hang on to my belief in you so that you can gain belief, because I know that especially as women, we are resilient, we are beautiful, and really, most importantly, we truly are unstoppable. Unstoppable.
Yes, we are. Oh, Cheryl, thank you so much. You've left me with words of encouragement. I got all sorts of tasks I'm going to do today. Woohoo! And away I go. Well, thank you again, everyone, for being here. I appreciate your support, and we will see you next time on Conversations with Women Like Me, Stories in Business.